Hello, I'm Deepak Bhatt for ACC.org. We're here on the final day of TCT, and have we got some good stuff for you? I'm joined by my good friends, Doctors Roxana Moran and Bina Ahmed, to discuss what we thought were the hottest trials and presentations from the day. I should mention we can only cover things where we've gotten the slides and papers sent to us ahead of time. So anyone that's upset that we didn't cover your trial, nothing personal. You should have sent your stuff in when ACC.org asked for it. So maybe I'll start with you, Bina. There were, I thought, really interesting data presented about PCSK9 inhibition started early in patients coming in with MIs. What were your thoughts about that trial? And maybe first you can just summarize it for the audience.
Yeah, I think it was only a matter of time till the PCSK9s were evaluated for this particular indication. We've seen it with statins, giving them at the time of STEMI presentation. Small trial looking at feasibility, but patients were given an injection of PCSK9 inhibitors at the time of STEMI and then continued for 4 weeks after. And there are about 40 patients in both the arms. There was a sham sort of placebo type approach to the patients in the control group. And again, not surprisingly, we saw a significant reduction in LDL. All of these patients were already on moderate intensity or high intensity statin therapy as well. So despite that, there was about a 25-point reduction in LDL numbers further. It was not powered or looking at clinical endpoints at this stage, but we'll see what the follow-up shows when they do look at clinical endpoints, but seems doable, and intuitively we'll see if it has an impact.
Yeah, Roxana, should interventionists be?
Well, I mean, I think this is a really exciting area of research. I think you and I both are, Deepak, quite involved in this arena, working on several studies, large-scale studies. There's the Evolve-MI study that is actually ongoing and will have large numbers of patients early post-MI. It makes sense, doesn't it, to really get LDL levels lower the better. We will see if this really translates in a STEMI patient population where we see recurrent infarctions as an important endpoint reduced. And so this is an area of great investigation. And I'm really glad that PCSK9 inhibitors are making it to the hands of the interventional cardiologists who are aggressive and will tackle the lipid issue as well in an aggressive way. So hopefully we'll see more on this. Very important.
Yeah, agreed. I'll just briefly mention the FAVOR3 trial looking at some data from China. I thought a great trial. Some of this work had been presented earlier. This is a longer term follow-up looking at QFR, quantitative flow ratio. And there, basically the magic number is 0.8 or less is bad. Here, like sticking a wire down the artery with FFR, IFR, this is using the angiogram in a 3D construction using an algorithm looking at things like corrected TIMI flow counts and calculating mathematically what the flow is and getting that number, as I mentioned, less than 0.8 is bad. And what they found here was that compared with just acting on the angiogram, the addition in this rigorously designed trial of QFR led to improved outcomes. That was shown before, and the results are durable, and they landmark the analyses. And even after the first year or so, there still seems to be a benefit, including lower rates of myocardial infarction, including spontaneous myocardial infarction, also less target lesion revascularization. So it seemed like a good approach to me, but what did you think of it, Roxana?
I mean, I think it's such an important study to have a non-invasive evaluation that may match the invasive FFR. The FFR results these days have been a little bit on the shaky side with some of the negative studies that we've seen, but in here, with a quantitative angiographic evaluation, being able to show that it's better than just looking at the angiogram and doing some of these important calculations and coming up with flow rates, and that there is functional significance to the stenosis using those algorithms leads to an improved outcome that's durable out to like beyond a year, up to 3 years, is really, really beneficial because it will be hopefully available in every cath lab easily, and that it wouldn't require wires. And wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's real potential here. The final trial we're going to cover, and it's actually a registry analysis, not a trial per se, was an analysis from the SCAR registry, the Swedish registry, looking at left main patients and comparing, again, in a non-randomized but statistically sophisticated way, PCI and CABG. And Bina, what were your thoughts about that one?
Yeah, it was impressive. It was over 10,000 patients over the span of 7 years. And they kept it simple. They looked at patients that underwent PCI versus surgical revascularization for left main disease. And they showed a benefit for CABG over the long term in terms of mortality. They just looked at all-cause mortality among the groups. It's tricky. It is registry data. The groups were very, very different if you look at them side by side, predominantly male. So we don't know how this would apply, among women. And so it adds more, I think, controversy to the left main debate, PCI versus CABG. I'd be curious and wait for the publication and sort of the details, but it seems to predict that CABG patients may do better with CABG long-term, especially younger patients.
Right, the ones over 80 there, again, we're getting into a subgroup of a registry analysis, did seem to do better with respect to mortality with PCI than CABG. I found that part of it interesting. It made me wonder, despite the sophisticated statistical adjustments, might it have still somehow been that the healthy left main patients were getting CABG and the sicker ones were getting PCI, but in those over 80, that phenomenon is less evident because they're over 80. But Roxana, what do you think of the trial overall?
I think you just put it
impressions.
exactly correctly, as usual, Deepak. Certainly the best group in probably the world's best registry with incredible high-level analytical ability. But no matter what, this is a registry making evaluation, comparative effectiveness evaluation, when you know that there are unmeasured confounders, no matter how you look at this, inverse probability weighting, multivariate models. We've seen this multitudes of ways, and it's always through randomized clinical trials where we would absolutely have that answer. But nonetheless, I always congratulate, and I always believe that those data from the SCAR registry always complement what we already know, and it's important to look at that. And certainly we can't call it that at this juncture there is a mortality benefit for left main PCI, because this is the very first registry that's showing that particular situation for left main patients. We don't know how many of them had multivessel disease, where we know that there is also that issue in isolated left main versus multivessel disease versus all of those details that we all know are important. Difficult to evaluate through a registry, but kudos to these investigators always, and they always give us great data to look at and chew on.
Sure, but I think, it is, one of you mentioned, we'll add to the debate about, CABG, and is there indeed a mortality benefit to it in patients that have high complexity or not. Well, it's really been great discussing these trials with both of you. Hopefully it provided the audience with some insights and maybe even a little entertainment. Thank you so much for all of you at home for joining. For those of you at home unable to travel to Boston, thank you for staying back and caring for patients while the rest of us are here in Boston having fun and learning. But for those of you that couldn't make it, and even for those of you that could, please do tune in to acc.org for full coverage of all the trials and registries and publications and news that are coming out of this very important meeting. Thank you so much.